Afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All okay? Perfect. Welcome to this session this afternoon. Thank you for making the time. I'm Dakina, and I am the Knowledge Translation and Research Practice Lead at Open. And I'll just sort of share my screen, then we'll go ahead. Okay. Can everyone see? Perfect. Perfect. So just before we start, so this is today we have two very interesting presentations from Good Shepherd and Merri Health, and they'll be talking about parents under pressure and family foundations. These are two EBPs, and they'll sort of share their insights about these two programs. But before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge the land on which we are. I want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land on which we work and live, and recognize that they have a continuous connection to the land and the water and the community. I pay my respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders, past, present, and emerging, and any of our Aboriginal colleagues who are attending this forum. I'm on Wurundjeri land, and I welcome everyone here. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We'll have two presentations today, and there will be a sort of a question-answer session just after each presentation. We have the chat function, of course, for everyone to ask questions, communicate with the participants and the speakers. In case you have any technical issues, it usually resolves by leaving and coming back into the session. Also, we have Catherine and Alice from our Open team. They'll be there in case you have any issues with technical stuff. They'll also be sharing all our phone numbers just in case you are not able to get into the session. And this session is being recorded, so please let us know if anybody has an issue with that. The other thing is that, I mean, it is a online forum and we tend to sort of switch off the videos, but if you want, please keep it on. It's wonderful for the speakers to see and interact with everyone. So just a little bit more about the speakers today. So again, welcome to the session. We have Nikki Hill and Linda from Good Shepherd, Australia. Nikki Hill is the team leader of the PUP practitioner program, and she has just a second. She has over 15 years of experience in the children and family sector, and she's been working in at Good Shepherd for the last 7 years. And she comes with a background in social work. She has a bachelor's with honors, and she's been with the team for the last 7 years. Linda is the family services team leader. She has a background in psychology and early childhood education. Linda has been working with Good Shepherd as a PUP practitioner. And just recently, early this year, she was seconded into the team, being a team leader for this family services program. So I would now welcome Nikki and Linda to start their presentation.
Thank you. Just waiting for the...
Yep, we should be good.
Great. Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. I'm Nikki Hill and my co-presenter is Linda Lee. I'd just like to start by acknowledging the lands on which we meet. I'm on Boonwurrung land, Linda's on Wurundjeri land, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and just make note that sovereignty was never ceded. Thank you. So we worked in partnership with Griffith University to develop our Parent Under Pressure program across our integrated family services teams. Today we're going to talk about our partnership, our background, the 2019 and 2020 implementation and evaluation of our PUP program, building our workforce capacity, our client demographics, our client outcomes, some of our benefits and learnings, and some feedback we've had from implementing the PUP program with our clients. So we worked in partnership with Griffith University, and Good Shepherd took some research, undertook some research into evidence-based models of intervention and chose to implement the Parenting Under Pressure program. This was back in 2019 and 2020 when all of our staff were trained in Parents Under Pressure. We implemented the program, and also we implemented with 4 specific practitioners, 2 in the West and 2 on the Peninsula. This helped build our workforce, and the reason we chose PUP, or Good Shepherd, is because it's an Australian model and it's an ecological approach that fit with all the integrated family services defined system of working with families. PUP is flexible, it's in-home, and it's face-to-face and meets families where they're at. PUP comes with a handbook that can be used to guide intervention, and it has a selection of modules to help parents develop their parenting skills. Our background. So we undertook a 12-month project where all of our staff across integrated family services in the youth sector were trained in PUP. Each practitioner undertook the training in person and completed a case study around how they had implemented the program using a specific family they were working with that formed the research that we're going to present with you today. So PUP is delivered within a case management model of intervention. An assessment undertaken to ensure areas of need are identified, and a PUP database is used to help guide practitioners' interventions. So you do an assessment with a family, and then you put it into the database, and it comes out with a report, and it guides your practice and guides where families need their support. And then you choose the modules out of the workbook that a family is in need of support around. And then you develop your goals with the family around what you're going to work on. The modules don't have to be delivered sequentially, which is really lovely. You can deliver each module when and as is needed. Pardon? Okay, sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. So PUP is an ecological approach to practice. And the PUP integrated theoretical framework has just been updated, and this is the most updated version. The integrated framework uses colours to identify different domains of functioning. The central line represents a child's development, and the circles represent the varying levels of influence impact upon a child and their development. Physical development is looked at as healthy and strong. Emotional and behavioural development is settled and happy. Cognitive development is learning and language. Social development is connection with others. Cultural, spiritual pride and connectedness is song, dance and movement. The PUP program overall aims to empower parents to believe that they can parent their baby or child as needed, and that it highlights parent self-efficiency. It's to develop nurturing and loving relationships with babies and children, with attachment being critical, and that highlights that this can begin in the prenatal period. It also is to ensure that parents are able to understand and manage their own emotional, and highlights impulsivity, prevents parents from connecting with an infant and supporting optimal development. Now we'll have a look at what our research told us and how we developed our workforce capacity. So staff were accredited over a 12-month period. Training was implemented across the integrated family services programs of Brimbank, Mountain and Mornington Peninsula. Staff were required to complete a case study for one of their current clients as part of an accreditation process. Success rates of staff completing the training were really high, and we trained 44 staff and also 4 team leaders who also went on and did the supervision training for PUP practitioners. We had youth homeless staff, integrated family services staff, family counselling staff, and our team leaders. High levels of readiness within our agency was evident, and we had a high level of support from our management team to implement an evidence-based model of intervention. We were really ready for an evidence-based model of intervention, and this saw us have high levels of satisfaction with the training, positive attitudes towards evidence-based practices, and we had a consistently strong percentage of knowledge surrounding standardised measures that you use in PUP. Practitioners felt confident in their skills to use standardised measures and recorded and improved skills throughout. And there was also an increased use of standardised measures. Now I'm going to hand to Linda to talk a little bit more about our client demographics. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. So just having a look at some of our client demographics, we had demographic data for 70 clients in total. The majority of our clients were single parent families, one family identified as Aboriginal, and most participants were female, and the average age was 38 years. So moving through to our client outcomes. So we're looking here at 2 of the main assessment tools that are used in PUP, and results are shown are based on 25 participants who had data for time 1 and time 2. So we have the DAS, which is the depression and stress scale, and this is a scale that parents complete for themselves. And the results showed statistically significant changes in depressive symptoms, anxiety, and stress. The STQ is the Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire, and this is a scale that parents complete for their children. So with this STQ, there are 5 scales that measure emotional problems, conduct problems, peer relationship problems, hyperactivity and attention problems, and there's also a scale that measures prosocial behaviour. So hypothesis tests were run to actually explore whether these changes were statistically significant. The hyperactivity and attention problems reduction was statistically significant. The other ones weren't, but this is potentially due to the small sample size, as it's really tricky to get a statistically significant result with sample sizes of less than 30. However, the data does show that all of the problem scales dropped between time points 1 and 2. So parents were reporting improvements in child behaviour following PUP. So that was a really good outcome. So what are the benefits of PUP and what did we learn? So in addition to the positive outcomes for families, these are some of the wider benefits of the PUP program. PUP has enhanced practitioners' observational skills and assessments of parent-child relationships. Components of the PUP program include observing the parent and child in structured and unstructured activities, and this allows practitioners to assess the emotional availability dimension of parent sensitivity, structuring, non-hostility, non-intrusiveness, child involvement, and child responsiveness. So after we do the observation, these are then used to facilitate discussions with the parents around attachment and emotional availability. PUP has supported the focus of strength-based practices within risk assessments. Practitioners are embedding mindfulness, and the teachability of mindful parenting has been embraced by parents. So mindfulness is a big component of the PUP program, and this has encouraged our practitioners to become better skilled at teaching mindfulness strategies. Practitioners have also been exploring a variety of mindfulness exercises and activities in order to be able to find ones that actually work for each of their individual families. And finally, as Nikki mentioned, PUP is an Australian model of intervention, and this fits really well within the Victorian child and family system. So onto our key learnings. So we recognised the added benefits of enhanced engagement with children. To enhance engagement, practitioners are using additional tools, including a resilience action plan to help children develop their own emotion regulation strategies alongside their parent and caregiver. We've identified the need for further alignment between IFS and PUP. And to address this, we've actually developed a PUP action plan to ensure that PUP remains the focus for practitioners. This action plan will eventually replace the current IFS action plan. We learned that it reinforced the importance of flexibility within program and service delivery. So, for example, some families actually find the standardised assessments quite overwhelming. So our frontline workers have found ways to embed these tools into their usual practice. And we also identified that families would benefit from even earlier intervention. Families that are referred to IFS are often at a crisis point or have a significant history with child protection. And because of this, change is often slower and a longer intervention period is required. Therefore, we expect that earlier engagement with PUP would be beneficial for families. So where are we now? We've created, as Nikki mentioned, 4 PUP-specific practitioner positions within our IFS teams. For the PUP-specific part of our IFS team, we do some screening to identify families who are ready to engage with PUP. PUP practitioners are able to spend more time engaging these families in therapeutic work, and they're also available to work after hours, including on weekends, in order to engage all family members. The majority of staff within IFS are trained in PUP, and some of our newer staff members have commenced their PUP training. We're starting to implement PUP in a group format. So last year we actually trialled a PUP group online and we had some great outcomes there. So we are planning to have more groups in the future, particularly once we're back to face-to-face delivery. And we're looking at developing a PUP early intervention and prevention service model. So there's a pilot program that's going to be starting in the coming months with 4 additional PUP practitioners being employed to run this program. The early engagement model aims to reduce the need for family service referrals and to prevent families from entering the child protection system. So to finish up, we'll leave you with a few quotes from families who engage with PUP. For Good Shepherd, the process of integrating an evidence-based program into our family services has been a positive and rewarding experience. The early success of the PUP program has led us to expanding the services we provide, and it's resulted in some really great outcomes for our families. We are looking forward to continued growth and success as we begin the next stage of our PUP journey. Thank you.
Questions? Do we have questions? Oh, we've got some in the chat. We've got one in the chat. So, any questions?
Thank you, Nikki. Yeah.
I won't start my video because my internet connection's a bit dodgy today, but I'm Laurel Johnson and I am one of the senior project officers in the Career Outcomes Division of DET. And this is really, really interesting to us. We're on a probably 3 or 4 year experimental implementation of evidence-based parenting programs into the ACOs that we fund. So we've got a real wide range of experience now with how they've been able to do that and with what degree of success. And you've touched on a lot of the things that we've had experience with. But I guess my question really is sort of what you've been saying about measurement and in terms of how you've managed to sort of reduce the scariness of assessment, both for practitioners and for parents, because it's an entirely new concept to our practitioners, and obviously there's a little bit of anxiety or pushback or whatever around that. So can you sort of describe a little bit about how you addressed that? And yeah, I guess.
Sure. So when we had training with Griffiths University, they trained us in how to use standardized measures. So they talked to us about that. They really unpacked that with us. So Griffiths University, when we originally were trained, was back in 2019. One of their professors flew down from Brisbane every It was about once a month over a 6-month period. I think it was about that. I can't really quite remember how often it was, and would do training with us around the PUP modules, and really unpacked with us how important standardized measures are, and just kind of demystified them a little bit, and made them really simple. And the DAS, particularly the DAS, is a scale that's used. GPs use it, psychologists use it. It's really common tool, and we just really and also we were in a space where we were really ready to measure and to really think about what works and what we were doing, and whether what we were doing was really bringing about positive change. So we were really keen to use standardized measures. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does. And we've actually only just recently had some interaction with Griffith around PEAM, the PEAM tool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had any experience with that, but yeah, so that's sort of, it's a little bit more friendly, PEAM, so it has helped in that regard. But yeah, it's still kind of something that we're working on, and you know, any kind of input we can get to help us figure out how best to do it is good.
Yeah, and just on that too, Laurel, I think, you know, what practitioners are doing with these measures as well, is I think part of it is about how we're explaining it to families as well, so how we kind of present these measures. And so you know, we kind of come from the approach of saying, well, let's have a look where your strengths are as well, and we're going to use these tools to kind of map out your journey through PUP. So it becomes, you know, a bit of a discussion point as well, and it's kind of, you know, using some of the PUP worksheets, you can kind of really have that conversation of assessing where the family strengths are, and then just kind of sliding in those measurements to get a baseline progress. So I think that helps families if they really kind of understand why doing those measurements as well.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think I don't want to dominate the conversation here, but I'll maybe get in contact with you, Nikki, offline. But I think probably the thing with that too is we're training the practitioners at the same time we're training the parents, so to speak. So
yeah,
we're helping them make less, you know, intrusive and scary, because they're sometimes making the assumption for the parent that the parent won't want this.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's,
you know, this is a tool to help you understand, you know, what you're progressing, and that you're having successes and celebrating those as well as anything else. Yeah, so that's been really important. And also PEAM can kind of be used just as a check-in. You don't necessarily have to use it as pre and post. So we've kind of encouraged practitioners to just use it more casually initially. You don't need to get all heavy duty with it. Just use it as a tool to talk to parents, really, in the first instance.
Yeah.
Thanks, Laurel. There are a few more questions, and Kerry has asked, what is the age range of the children in this program?
So it can start prenatal up till about 12, but we have implemented PUP with adolescents. We have, but it really is 12 to prenatal stage. But we have implemented PUP. We have developed it a little bit, and particularly with the resilience action plan that we're using now, working more with adolescents. Because it really is targeted for parents, but when you start working in that adolescent space, you need to have tools for adolescents to also, you know, be mindful and how they can kind of have some learnings from these as well.
Great. The next question is from Jennifer. Jennifer, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah, look, thank you. Thanks, Danica, and thanks for a great presentation. It'd be great to get the contact person too for the PUP program, because we've made some attempts over the last year to try to get training, or to get some more information on training, and we haven't had much luck getting connected in. So that would be really helpful.
I can see there's a link in the chat for the PUP program that Pip's put there. Pip's one of our team leaders who's trained in PUP as well. She's put the link there. If you follow the link and you can go on the website and have a look at the training.
Yeah, and I've filled in the web form, but we never hear back. So I'm not too sure if there's somebody directly to connect with, but I'll try again. I'll look at the link. But the other question I have is that ongoing tension we have in practice between case coordination and delivering an intervention. So when you go to deliver and with any evidence-based program, you're following particular curriculum, but you may find yourself in a situation with a family where you walk in and there's the latest case coordination issue that needs to be addressed. How do you manage that at the same time needing to be able to deliver the actual intervention itself?
So this is, yeah, and this is something that's, I think we've been fine tuning as we go along as well. But, you know, for us, you know, we do have the specific PUP practitioner roles, which they kind of focus more on the therapeutic. But in saying that, you're right, you know, at times things come up for families that need to be, you know, case managed, and we just kind of do it as needed. So basically, you know, with the therapeutic side, we're just trying to, you know, sometimes we do what we call sneaky PUP. So sometimes we're kind of focusing on, you know, the case management side of it, but still kind of getting in the PUP elements. So you just, you know, I guess it's about working out the goals for the family, and if the current goal is around something that's, you know, linking them in with another service, that gets done, and then we kind of move back into the, you know, to the modules or whatever it is that we're working on. So, but I think it really just depends on the family. It's different for everyone, and obviously the worker as well. Nikki, did you have anything else to add?
No,
to
that was a great sum up of how we do that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. Kathy has another question, and maybe Kathy, do you want to ask that yourself?
Oh, thanks. So when we've been looking at parenting programs for fathers, and I guess we were particularly looking at fathers who use violence, it was pretty clear that most of the parenting programs are specifically designed for, or the people that turn up to them anyway, are largely women and often single mothers. And in fact, a lot of the parenting programs are designed with single mums or women who are struggling, and particularly struggling to get into the driver's seat and be, you know, quite both attached and assertive in their parenting. And they're not necessarily designed with fathers in mind, and particularly when there are issues around violence and abuse. And I just wondered whether you've got some commentary about that and whether you do.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Kathy, because when we were funded for PUP, we tailored the program to target really working with dads, and our practitioners work flexible working hours. They work some weekends and some after hours to engage dads. And there's a mindful focus around in PUP that really is around that mindfulness and being aware of your emotions and emotional regulation. And that really is a focus. And a lot of the referrals that our PUP practitioners get are around dads who are admitting and saying, yes, I need help. I'm having problems with my emotional regulation. And often there's been incidents or L17s. So they're open to that support, and we're doing some work in that space. So also all of our practitioners are also MARAM trained, so they you know, they have that in the back of their mind when they're working with families, and that risk assessment lens. But yeah, so we have kind of worked in that space and are working in that space with our PUP practitioners, and PUP does give you a space to do some of that mindful parenting work that needs to happen. And also it's really around enhancing attachment for children and their parent. And there's part of PUP is observational skills and how you see the interaction between the parent and child, and giving parent feedback around that and how and what's happening in those interactions, and unpacking some of that with that parent.
Oh, that's really interesting, Nikki. I mean, we're just starting, so Margaret Curtis, Larissa Fogg and myself, we're just starting some work with Kids First with the Caring Dads program, but working jointly now with Odyssey House, who are using PUP with, but the PUP program they're really using with Kids in Focus, which is mainly a mothers and child program. So just interested in how these things connect and exploring that a little further. So we might be back in touch with you, Nikki.
Okay, great, that'd be lovely.
Wonderful. There's one more question from Aitne from Jewish Care. is there a set amount of hours that it takes to complete the program? And did you find that the participants continued to work with the practitioner after the program ended, or were they then able to implement the strategies and no longer require the IFS case management supports?
So at the moment, we're working, our PUP practitioners are working for about 6 to 12 months with families implementing the program, but there's no set time. It's about working through the issues and working through the areas that people need support with. And that PUP practitioners don't have a set time, but it is about, at the most, it's really 12 months. And we're seeing that parents, once they've done that 12 months, they're not really coming back to us. We're not seeing a lot of re-referrals if they've done that work. So yeah, does that answer that question?
I think because PUP kind of sits within the case management model, it just continues for as long as we're case managing the family. But we have had instances as well where we're co-case managing, so where we've got other services that might be doing the IFS side of it, and then we just come in and do PUP, in which case we finish with PUP and they might stay involved with IFS or they might not. Otherwise, that, you know, IFS might actually finish before we finish PUP. So that has happened for a couple of the families as well. So
great, thanks. There's another question from Fiona. Do you use other specific observation tools in your program, such as Piccolo?
We don't use, so we don't have other observation tools. We do observation, but our other tools are mostly just standardized measures. So we have like the daily hassles questionnaire. We have one around I think substance use in there as well. So there's a couple of different questionnaires, but we don't have Piccolo or anything like that, no.
Because I know you, sorry, it wasn't quite the question. It was more what other tools, that's okay. What tools do you use? Because you mentioned the DAS. Are there other tools that you've been using to get together the information?
Yeah. So so there's the daily hassle scales. There's a mindfulness one that we check. It's around parent mindfulness, where they're at. There's a couple of other ones.
For Indigenous communities, there's one called Strong Souls for Indigenous families, and there's one called a drug and alcohol measure around how much someone is using substances. So
there's a few different ones, but we do, just depending. The DAS and the SEQ are the two main ones. The other ones we'll use as needed, depending on what we're trying to assess.
So it's tailored to the family's needs. Yeah, great. Thank you.
No worries. Lots of good questions. There's lots of conversation. It's great. It's really nice.
Yeah, it is good.
There's one more from Belinda. Do you want to unmute yourself, Belinda, or I can ask? Okay. What about clients and with attachment disorders? How do they feel this program? Would it help?
Yeah, so one of the things about PUP is it really does focus on attachment, and there's a module around the importance of trauma recovery and linking families to therapy and counselling if that's what's needed. But also it does give a space to heal attachment and repair relationships. Yeah.
Wonderful. There's more from Merri Family Care. They have also been operating with this program, and Kayla has kindly put her email address there as well if people want to get in touch with her.
Great.
Yeah, so wonderful. And obtaining more information with implementing PUP in the Wodonga area, training options for staff. This was asked by Lance.
So Pip's put a link in the chat section around the link to the Griffith University PUP website. So if you're interested in training around PUP, please contact Griffith University and speak to them. If anyone has any trouble getting in touch, I know someone said earlier they had, I'm happy to pass on emails. If you email me, I'm happy, if you're happy for me to share your email, I'm happy to pass on your contact to our contact, if that's going to be helpful. If you want to do that, my email is in the chat if you like to make a note of that.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much. And does anybody have any more questions? Otherwise, we can move to the next.
Ask one other hopefully quick question?
Yeah.
Just in regards to your trial, which didn't include, included one Aboriginal family, is there anything in the pipeline to maybe look at PUP in relation to Aboriginal families a bit more closely, in regards to how well it works with them or how adaptable it is to their needs? Like if you're using strong souls, you're kind of talking about more of a drug and alcohol related work that you're doing with a family that's having particular issues in that area or in other kind of areas. And our ACOs are funded more just to deliver parenting support, so it's hard to know whether it's really entirely relevant.
So I don't know what the research in terms of working with Indigenous communities is around PUP, but it is an Australian approach, and it's ecological, so it looks at a child and family system, so it fits well in that space. And if you wanted to know a little bit more about that, you'd probably need to contact Griffiths and find out what their research is, because they have implemented it in some in other areas, particularly in far north Queensland. So they'll have some research around that. They gather their data from the PUP database around those things. Yeah.
I think they've got a couple of their research papers online too on the website, so you can have a look there.
Okay, so probably, Nikki, Pip, and Linda, they've all shared their email addresses here in the chat, so please feel free to connect with them. And I'll move on to the next presentation, and I'll invite Sam Pladon from Merri Health. Sam is the acting team leader for Family Foundation program. She is a counselor with specialist training in relationship counseling. She's been working in private practice for more than 20 years and was enticed back into this program and this organization because of this EBP, Family Foundations. Prior to this work, she has worked in the disability and the education sector. So for 15 years. So welcome, Sam, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dr. I'd like to start by acknowledging the land and the waterways that I'm coming to you from today, the Wurundjeri land, and the custodians of that land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to the elders past and present and emerging, and I extend this to anyone who's listening today or listening to the recording who may also identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. And I acknowledge this land has never been ceded. Thank you. I'd also like to acknowledge that some of the slides' content were gratefully supplied by Murdoch Children's Research Institute. So Merri Health is a non-for-profit community health provider committed to creating and supporting healthy and connected communities. Merri has been part of the community for over 40 years, providing programs and support for every age and stage of life. We have 8 sites across the Northwest and 1 regionally in Wangaratta. With Carer Gateway, we are now a statewide organisation. I'm here to talk to you today about Family Foundations. So Family Foundations is an innovative evidence-based intervention that promotes parent health and mental health, reduces conflict and strengthens parenting partnerships during pregnancy and the critical early years of their lives. Supporting parents and strengthening families to raise happy, healthy children in the face of challenging life circumstances is critical. Merri Health, in partnership with Murdoch Children's Research Institute, brought this US-based program to Melbourne to trial it for the first time with families in Australia. It was developed by Professor Mark Feinberg from the Penn State University and was adapted for an Australian context by Rebecca Gialio, Monique Seymour and Lorraine Skinner. The trial commenced in January 2018 with funding from the Victorian Government, then Department of Health and Human Services, from the tender Building Evidence-Based Programs and Practice in Child, Youth and Family Services, This was part of the Victorian government's official roadmap for reform, strong families, safe children. A critical enabler of this reform is for the sector to become a learning system where outcomes are measured and services are continually re-evaluated, refined and improved. With this in mind, we are committed to an ongoing engagement with MCRI. Delivering new programs such as Family Foundations also reflects Merri Health's commitment to this kind of learning. So Family Foundations is state funded, so it's a free program for consumers. It's a 10-session program and it's manualised. It's open to anyone who's pregnant or has a child and has a support person involved in the rearing of that child. They can be living together or separated. The parenting partner doesn't need to be a biological parent either. So we've engaged parents, parenting team where there's a mother and a grandparent, for example. We've also engaged a couple of clients where they were waiting for their surrogate child. However, unfortunately, due to COVID, they had to flee overseas and they never re-engaged. It's about enhancing the quality of the relationship and interaction that the child will witness, as well as creating a supportive team to promote good mental health for both parents and child. We focus on the co-parenting relationship, managing common challenges. So the adjustment to parenthood. We look at the challenges in relationship, the changes in roles, how to appreciate each other, and what each other is doing for the team and how to express this. We look at their values and think about what kind of parents they want to be. We aim to build goodwill while navigating short tempers due to sleep deprivation, for example. We look at managing anxiety and stress and ultimately decreasing that, learning skills to promote self-regulation, understanding our feelings through looking at the child's emotional development, looking at how our thoughts fuel our feelings and either escalate or de-escalate our emotions, and self-care. So put the mask on yourself before the child. There are times when taking care of yourself and your partnership can also be the best way to take care of your child. Strengthening co-parenting relationship, the power of positive input into a relationship and acknowledging what each other does and that it's not a competition. Building goodwill is a very big underpinning of our program. And we do lots of communication skills strategies, learning to listen to each other and tolerate the difference. We don't have to agree with each other, but we do need to understand each other's perspective. And we look at reducing conflict ultimately. Lots of discussion and strategies around understanding each other's conflict styles and how to de-escalate early, reflecting on our own child of origin experience and what that may look like and what do we want to do differently in our family. We make plans for how we're going to deal with conflict in front of the child. And the importance of repair after conflict and modelling this to children. That is building children's resilience and emotional intelligence. Just go back one. And so, yeah, we do 1 hour sessions and it's delivered by to the two parents by two professionals. We try to mirror the couple. So if it's a same-sex couple, we will use a same-sex team, but we generally use a male-female for a heterosexual couple. And we use lots of fun activities that work as metaphors that underpin the work done in the program, as well as lots of discussion. The Australian Early Developmental Census reports that 1 in 5 Australian children grow up experiencing significant early life adversity, including family violence, conflict, poor parent mental health and poverty. We know that these early experiences can adversely affect child brain development and increase risk for poor health and developmental outcomes in the short and the long term. With this in mind, early intervention is the best way to support healthy child development, as well as creating a future healthy society. Family Foundation's intervention is about as early as you can get, focusing even before babies are born. As parents are a child's first teacher, it makes sense to empower them to make the change. Family Foundations does this by working on the relationship. This is done by building skills within the parents so they can build skills within their relationship and then with their child, modelling this all the way. So in this diagram, it shows the benefits of the Family Foundations program for the individual parent on the left, you can see the decrease, developing skills, supporting fathers, increasing confidence. Up the top for the couple, around improving conflict resolution, their communication, and their parenting. For the child down the bottom, improving child regulation and decreasing their exposure to conflict. And then the parent-child interaction, which is really about promoting attachment. The program has its own body of evidence as collected by Penn State and MCRI, but the program also draws on evidence-based theories, practices and research, as in CBT, family stress theory, emotional security and attachment theory. A lot of the content of the program draws on the research of the Gottmans and Levinson and Gottman of the Gottman Institute. They've been gathering evidence-based research on couples for over 35 years. And on the other side, you can see the short-term outcomes and the long-term outcomes for parents and children, which I'll talk about shortly. So the bonus of being part of a research project is that we have access to regular and consistent feedback. As a high percentage of our clients partake in the research, we can gauge how the program is being perceived. So a positive feedback loop. I want to talk a bit about some of the challenges and opportunities of delivering family foundations. So cost. Evidence-based programs are perceived to be quite expensive. Thinking long-term, early intervention reduces future needs. So money spent in prevention saves money and heartache in the future. With Australia spending an estimated $10.6 billion on mental health in 2018-19, and that was pre-COVID, an estimated $22 billion on family violence in 2015-16, then it follows that money spent now is an investment for the future. To add to this, people who seek early intervention are also less likely to fall through the cracks. With the more vulnerable families we see and clients who have more ongoing needs, we're able to refer them into appropriate supports. The most expensive cost to the program really was the initial cost of bringing Mark out from the States for the training. We had to do this twice as the program expanded and our funding was extended. But now we have a trainer in Australia at Murdoch, so that's going to be less expensive moving forward when we need to train new staff in the future. There are ongoing small costs associated with the parent books and materials to run the program. And having 2 parent coaches is intensive, but dropout and success rate are very high in this program. So the fidelity of the program. So the program is licensed from Mark Feinberg, and we're currently the only official organisation licensed to deliver the program in Australia. There are various mechanisms in place to prove the fidelity, including the manual itself. It is manualised, and the facilitators do fill in a survey checklist at the end of each session to record what was completed in the session. For a time pre-COVID, we also did do tape sessions, but we don't do that anymore. Everyone who delivers the program needs to be trained. This could prove an issue in the future should workers leave, but luckily job satisfaction is high. As the program is designed to be delivered by a male and a female co-facilitator, recruiting appropriate male facilitators in a female dominant industry can be a little bit tricky sometimes. So as I said, the program is manualised. So this is not couples counselling. It's not a parenting program and it's not a couples counselling program. It's something in between. And for some couples, the manualised format can be frustrating, especially for high conflict couples or those who want to bring up issues or score points against each other. But it can also be containing and de-escalating as the clients are placed on an even playing field. The emphasis is on learning skills around communication so as not to as better manage their issues rather than thrashing it out and point scoring, as I've already said. Anecdotally, the manualised nature is particularly non-threatening to the male client as they don't feel like they're the problem. Although it is manualised, there is plenty of scope for varied discussions that can be tailored to the individual couple's need. The program is available for all. Research and common sense have consistently demonstrated the need for opportunities for effective parenting before a baby is born. Currently, most programs that offer pre- and postnatal education are for at-risk couples, families or single mothers. Family Foundations is for every expectant parent, regardless of age, marital status or life circumstances. The only exception being those with active family violence or CP involvement, although this is not totally true and is assessed on a case-by-case basis. So as we're a support program and not a case management model, we tend to rely on being part of an active care team. I will add, though, that participants who are more vulnerable tend to have a higher dropout rate and don't necessarily participate in the research data, as sometimes it's hard to get some of their research back, but they're never denied access to the program. Engaging men, we believe we're fulfilling an identified gap in current service provision. Many parenting programs focus on parenting skills and education around this and are generally delivered by females in a female-heavy industry, focusing on building the maternal parent skill and maternal attachment. Family Foundations focuses on strengthening the parenting relationship. Evidence shows that when parents feel supported, they are more confident and subsequently are better parents, strengthening the parenting team. This impacts positive outcomes for both parents and child mental health. So having two parent coaches, male and female, is designed to engage the men. There is also an opportunity to model interpersonal gendered cooperation. After hours appointments, again, helps engage working parents. Demand can be high, so there can be a waiting list for after hours. Engaging clients prenatally. Ideally, the program is designed to be delivered 5 sessions before a baby's born and 5 sessions after a baby's born, but by far the majority of our clients engaged postnatally. Perhaps this is because until COVID, the prenatal education was generally delivered by hospitals. Our main referrals prenatally come from word of mouth, GPs, offering shared care and private midwifery practices. It's been really hard to get into the midwifery hospital setting, I think because they're so overworked and inundated. We do, however, have strong referral pathways with hospital social work departments and mother-baby units, but again, these tend to be postnatal. Re-engaging after the birth of a child, there is a percentage, and it's very small, of clients who do not engage post-birth. We're unsure why this is, although reasons reported are chaos of having a new baby, work commitments and moving away. But this is, with COVID and moving online, this has changed with moving away, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Engaging culled families. While we have lots of culled families in terms of English as a second language, or who've born overseas, their English tends to be very high, the skills of the clients we've engaged, but they don't have any family support here, and that's pre-COVID. We don't have funding for interpreters. We have engaged couples where one client's English is very limited and the English-speaking parent then kind of acts as an interpreter. This is not ideal, as this can open up to subjective interpretation filtered through a lens of possible relationship bias. So it's something we are thinking of, and we have engaged new staff who have English as other language in their toolbox. Home delivery is convenient. It's reported as an encourager for engaging men, particularly supportive when parents have a new baby too, and getting out of the house can be difficult. It may be a deterrent for people worrying about a messy house, which was reported as an asset with going online during COVID. Finally, COVID-19, the biggest challenge and opportunity for us all. I'll talk about that in a minute. So I just want to talk a little bit about the American journey. So as I said, it was developed by Mark Feinberg and was initially delivered in a group setting. He did 2 randomised control trials, which showed a decrease in parent depressive and anxiety symptoms verbal and physical conflict, and an increase in levels of co-parenting. He did a 6 month, 12 months, 3 year and 7 year follow-up. And then he also did another one, which was a 10-year follow-up during COVID time. So the Australian journey. Initially, we had a 9-month trial, and then the funding just kept. We got then another 6 months, and then I think it was another 12 months. During this time, MCRI has been evaluating the program, and we've done 2 phases so far. Recently, we found out our funding has been extended for another 3 years till the end of the financial year 2024. So we'll be entering our 3rd phase of evaluation at the end of this year, and ethics is being, is in process now. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute going forward. So learning outcomes. Research shows so far with parents there's been a decrease in stress, decrease in depressive symptoms, particularly in mothers, parenting, increase in sensitivity and warmth, and decrease in conflict in front of children. And for the couple, improved positive co-parenting and moreover warmth and closeness. With children, that is the US study, and we're hoping now that we've got funding for 3 years and we're moving into this next phase, that we'll be able to do more longitudinal follow-up, and hopefully, as all the other evidence has echoed the US studies, we're hoping that that will be the same for children as well. So again, there's a very high satisfaction with the numbers and duration of sessions, home visits and opportunities for discussion, and having 2 parent coaches. Yeah, it's good having this feedback. Makes us all pretty happy as clients, as workers working in this field, in this program. COVID, challenges and opportunities. So like all programs, and like all of you would have noted, many clients reported the need for extra support during lockdowns and isolation, with experiencing more stress and uncertainty. And with both parents often being at home together 24/7, some couples report the skills learnt in the program translated well to these times. This also matched the findings of the US. More couples were available during the day. That was definitely a real asset of COVID-19 and working from home. Moving to telehealth. We made a quick decision to try delivering by video platform. We worried how it would translate, as we have lots of interactive activities and videos. However, with a forgiving climate, the metaphors seemed to hold. Delivering via video platform meant that we could offer programs outside our original catchment area, as we no longer needed to consider travel into the equation. This meant clients who travelled or moved interstate, which there were a few who did the bolt out of Melbourne, could continue the program. We even had international relocations to New Zealand and as far afield as South Korea. So we could finish the program because the time difference was comparable. As a team, this is really exciting for us because we see that there's possibilities of offering the program further afield, not just out of the catchment areas and into Melbourne, but beyond into regional Victoria, if internet is willing. So yeah, it's a real something we're really excited about. The downside of telehealth is that it's harder for facilitators to pick up nuances, micro cues and body language. Interpreting and talking over each other and interrupting each other can happen. This can be clunky. However, in some cases, maybe it puts more emphasis on the couple as they sit in the room together. Some coaches found the online delivery was taxing, sitting in front of a screen. I think we're all used to that by now. And of course, the internet connection can be challenging. Another thing we're getting used to. So after hours is not so bad. Working after hours from home has proved to be a winner, particularly with facilitators. The loss of travel time has been a bonus. Clients also report that they like being able to tune in and out without dealing with people coming in and out of their home. When we did deliver in the home, we were able to manage, help the clients manage their baby so that they could actually focus on each other while doing the material at hand. Being online, this has been difficult. So often couples will have to manage their child, but you know, some of our staff have come up with some innovative ways to engage a child through the screen. Believe it or not cleaning the house has been a bonus for a lot of, or said to be a bonus for a lot of clients. There's less cancellation because people don't feel, you know, if their baby's sick, that they can still do that hour online. Backed up by evidence. So again, the beauty of having MCRI on board is that we have an evaluation to reflect on and direct client feedback of how this adaptation and delivery of the program impacts the outcomes. It has been reported that there has been no real impact on the expected outcomes due to being online, which is good to know. So next I'm going to talk about the learning outcomes. So evidence-based materials are transferable. Moving online had no impact on the evidence outcomes, whether it was delivered in group, in the home, or on telehealth. The program has been delivered in all of those forms now. The male and female co-facilitation, the majority of the first contacts we have are from female clients. Men often report at intake that they are signing up as their partner wants to do it. Having a male definitely engages dads. A question we ponder is, why have we not engaged more same-sex couples, and has the emphasis on fathers somehow alienated this demographic, even though we do echo the couple? When we do engage same-sex couples, we do try and echo the couple. So trust the evidence. As already stated, the Australian research echoes closely the American data. The program works. An anecdotal story, we had a high conflict couple enroll in the program. They had their second child on the way. There was an incident where the male stormed out during session. The parent coaches had taken this couple to supervision. They felt like they hadn't really made an impact. You know, it didn't feel like it was had really worked for them. They were quite disheartened. Anyway, a year later, they got a message from the female member of the couple, thanking them, saying that it had changed their communication and changed their whole life, parental life together. So that was pretty indicative that the evidence works. So looking forward, we've got funding for 3 years. We are moving into phase 3. We will be doing offering 3 different ways of delivering the program. We're hoping to get back to home visits. We will continue to do telehealth, and we're also going to start doing groups, particularly offering groups where we will do the first 5 sessions in a group with pregnant families, and then we'll move to telehealth or home visit. So again, for ease of having a new baby. And we are hoping that we can develop a good relationship within a hospital to do that. We're looking for towards engaging more same-sex couples, and the online delivery, again, as I said, moving further afield is a really exciting prospect for us. And in finishing, we are really proud that Family Foundations is a finalist for the 2021 Victorian Early Years Award, supporting parents and building their capacity and confidence. So thank you very much for listening today. And I'll hand back to Takina.
Thank you, Sam. That was great. It was really good. I'm now thinking I should recommend a few people.
Great.
I have a few friends who've just had babies, so I should actually just ask them to look this up. But I had a few questions, and some of them were from the forum that day. And today I also have a question other than that, but I'll just start with those questions. What is the current capacity of the program, and how many families is the program able to support at one time? and in which area of the state?
Yeah. So in the last financial year, we had about 230 families enroll. Of that, 105 completed the 10 sessions. And there's about 50 families of that are still currently involved, and there's a waiting list. So we've just taken on new staff. So we have a capacity of about 50 to 60 that are open at one time. And some of those will be on hold. So if they're pregnant, they'll have their first 5 sessions. Then we might wait 2 months. We try and finish it like 3 or 4 weeks before they have the baby, and then we give them a couple of months to settle in, and then we re-engage. So yeah, and the capacity, as I said, we used to, our catchment area was Wyndham, Brimbank, Moreland and Hume, but COVID has opened that up for us. So we go beyond that. We're seeing all of Melbourne. It will be, if it's beyond those catchment areas and we do go back to home visit, it will be online. If it's in those catchment areas, then we will do for home visits whenever that happens. But yeah, as I said, we've seen couples who are in Bright or in Geelong, as well as interstate New South Wales and New Zealand and South Korea. We're not aiming to expand there, but it happen.
No, I think even though COVID has had its challenges, I think it has brought some amazing opportunities. Amazing.
We would never have thought,
Exactly.
And yeah, we did lose in the early days. There were couples who went back to China or and that was the end of it. But now it was like, oh, you're going to South Korea? Sure, we can. Yeah, 2 hours difference. We can do it. It was great.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. So there was another question about, do you involve the children in the process to get their views and goal setting? But I guess not, right? Because they're newborns.
No, that's right. But they are very much present in how we, even though we're focusing on their relationship, this is about the child. You are their first teachers and you are going to influence them. So, but having said that, some of the tools that we've had clients who have teenage children from previous relationships, and they've gone, oh, I think I might use this tactic, and they've used it. And some of the activities with children who are a little bit older, particularly the communication skills, they've gone, oh, we could turn this into a game with our 5-year-old. Let's include them in that. So while no, they're not, and it is really about going, this is about you guys and how important it is, because often when people have a baby, they start looking at the baby and they focus on the baby and they go, this is the most important thing. And yes, it is. But if you're not communicating well and you're then using that against each other, your love of your baby against each other, then you're not going to create the best home. So saying, actually, you guys communicating well is about your child's mental health, is about your child's ultimate development, is more honest in some ways, and what the program's about.
Wonderful. That's a beautiful statement. Okay, so this is one more question about, are parents with unborn reports to child protection referred to this program?
Yeah, again, it's on a case-by-case basis. And as long as we're a support program, so if there is a good care team involved, then we will, we're definitely, there's eligibility. Because it is manualised, it's not like it's not therapy and it's not case management. So as long as someone else is picking that up, then this can be an amazing additive to that, addition to it, because it's teaching all those skills, and as I said in the presentation, it puts people on an even playing field, so it makes them both accountable to the same level and same behaviour. And then if you've got that support outside of there, if things come up, because we're only an hour and we're not in the family home, particularly since we've gone online.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I had a question. I mean, this was more about the when you were talking about the vulnerable families and some of them have had high dropout rates.
Yeah.
So has some effort been made to re-engage them, and or how do you deal with that if that's sort of you're seeing there's a problem there, and then how do you manage that?
Yeah. So when I say, when I say high dropout rate, they may not finish the full 10 sessions, but they do get the benefit. Sometimes it's like session 7, session 9, and it's, usually because there's something, there's a bit of chaos in their life. But we're very flexible. So if you think it's 10 sessions, so it really should be finished in 2.5 months. Some vulnerable families, it can take 6 months because they might not make this week, or we try and put them in another time. We're pretty accommodating, but we always leave the door open. So we'll have multiple attempts to re-engage the family. And sometimes they might have to go off and do something else and then they'll come back. Or sometimes we will say, look, let's, when you're ready, let's get back in touch, and we'll contact them in a couple of months, or they will re-engage. So they're always encouraged to come back to the program. And we're really hoping with the follow-up that's coming with Murdoch, that's going to have a really positive impact on the delivery of the program as well. But we've got to wait and see with that. But we do try to re-engage as much as we can. And then just if they don't, we hope that the evidence, as it's proved, has given them enough skills to plant those seeds. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I think there was one question about the Aboriginal space as well, like where, and I guess, I mean, I work with a lot of multicultural agencies, and I mean, there's that, the mother would not prioritize her self-care in these cultures.
Yes.
And then how do you sort of, navigate that, and how do we get those families, into this kind of a program?
Yeah. So there's two parts to it. I guess the Indigenous engaging Aboriginal families is something that we've talked a lot about as a team, and we're really aware of the sensitivity around that, particularly being about families, and it's manualised, so it's kind of, is that an imposition? We are certainly starting some conversations, and I would imagine that the need to engage Indigenous workers, and we have talked a lot about that, and working alongside an agency rather than being the only agency. Murdoch, we've talked about that. That would be something we're looking for, and we know that this is going to be a long-term process. So if funding continues on that this will be something that we will look to, and it'll be a separate research program project probably. So it's definitely on our radar. We have engaged, I think, 1% Indigenous, Aboriginal families, but it's something we're definitely, as I said, on our radar. I think a lot of women find it very hard, particularly to prioritise their own self-care, but that analogy, if you put the mask on yourself before you put it on a child, has been really useful for women and men to understand, oh yeah, actually this is about, if we are the first teachers, and if we are not functioning well, then that's what our children are going to learn. And if we're not showing how to look after ourselves, we want our children to thrive and to look after themselves, so we need to learn to do that. I think that's kind of a big learning out of the program, that putting your child first, being the best parent you can be, is about being the best you can be, which means supporting yourself and supporting each other. So yeah, that's kind of underpins the whole program. And yeah, you're right, it's revolutionary for some people that actually you need to look after yourself, that because if you're giving and not replenishing, then how can you stay afloat? And we do a lot of stuff around looking after yourself and what can you do, and also how can you look after your partnership. So that is prioritised. Yeah.